Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tessier of WrestleZone.com, joined by JC, Just Incredible, John Clark. John, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing good as well, even though it's Monday night and we just sat through I always hate to say slog fest because that's a little harsh, but it's Raw. It's 3 hours. It's a trip. And before I break it down, just want to remind you all that this show, like everything we do here at WrestleZone, is available on any number of streaming services, whether it's SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. Leave a like, subscribe, show your support. We definitely appreciate it. So, John, tonight the main event: Charlotte Flair, Asuka, a WrestleMania main event. It would be more special if they hadn't run it back a couple times last year, but still a good match here. Two of the very best in the game. You know, hard to complain too much when you get that. And of course, you got Rhea Ripley as an X factor in there as well. And clearly, it seems like they're building to a triple threat match here. And I left tonight kind of leaving fairly certain of that, where we had Rhea Ripley play into the outcome of this one. She distracted Charlotte, kind of got up on the apron there, broke up the figure eight submission hold, and then it looked like Charlotte was going to win. And then Asuka rolled her up because of that distraction, and then that wasn't even the big takeaway. Then Charlotte started beating the crap out of a referee. She snapped John. She lost her mind, and then she attacked another referee, and that was the close. The takeaway here is that Charlotte's going crazy, and her goal to win the woman's title, and I don't know what to think about it. What do you think, John?
It was definitely very intriguing. And the reason I say that is because I don't think we've really seen something like, at least to that extent, in a long time. I mean, we've had instances in the past couple months where maybe a referee has been shoved. Specifically, I know Braun Strowman did it, and I think Drew McIntyre did it once as well. But to the extent of actually like just pounding on one while the others just watch, like, and try to yell, but that never works. It's a unique direction. It looks like Rhea and Asuka are gonna both be baby faces in this match, with Charlotte being the heel. I don't see any scenario in which Charlotte wins, although maybe she does pin like Asuka and steal one or something. I think it's going to be interesting how it plays out, because I think what's happening here is, after we get through WrestleMania Backlash, I think they're going to start kind of phasing out Asuka out of this, and it's going to turn into like a summer thing where it'll be Charlotte and then Rhea, kind of one-on-one thing over the summer. But what do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense. That's a good way to kind of prolong this. Keep Asuka in there, and then you kind of maximize this revenge feud, I guess, of Charlotte and Rhea. Of course, we saw last year, Charlotte beat Rhea at WrestleMania, took her NXT title, and we got to see a little feud there on NXT, but nothing really beyond that. And then, of course, all the rumors that Rhea Ripley was going to get called up last year, that didn't happen. And now finally she's on the main roster. Now Charlotte's in there as well. So that would make a lot of sense. It's April now. I don't know how long they can stretch this out. And Backlash is next month. Then you probably have Money in the Bank, Extreme Rules as well, and then SummerSlam. Not sure if we can stretch all the way to SummerSlam, but you can definitely get a good stretch out of this. And I think that's a great way to. I think we talked about it last week, just kind of pretty quickly build Rhea Ripley up as this legitimate player. I mean, she came out tonight on commentary. I should say, when she came out for her entrance, just star power. That is just like written all over her. Every time she comes out there, I think she definitely does add.
The situation they're in, because of how they did kind of push back WrestleMania 2 weeks this year, it's interesting because it appears that after WrestleMania Backlash is really when the Charlotte and Rhea one-on-one thing is really going to get started. So if you think about Money in the Bank and Extreme Rules, because usually a program like that is good for at least two pay-per-views. But then you think, well, if they get the whole way to Extreme Rules, then the next one is SummerSlam. So it's almost like, do you just prolong it an extra month? Do you somehow work it in there where maybe there's an quote unquote injury somewhere, or maybe even a suspension somewhere? Where, I mean, and when it's a title match like this, it's hard to do the 50-50 booking because you don't want to just switch the title back and forth. Because I was going to say you could have maybe Rhea win Money in the Bank or like Charlotte winning Extreme Rules, and then the payoff is at SummerSlam. But with the contenders that Raw really truly has right now, unless maybe like a Becky or a Ronda were to come back, and let's not forget that Alexa Bliss has made it clear tonight that she's very much going to be in this picture as well. Uh, Interesting to see what the SummerSlam match is, because if you had to predict at this very moment what, we're almost pretty much uh, exactly 4 months away from it. If you had to predict, what is that match going to be? I think a lot of people would probably say Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. But I mean, obviously, you have Alexa Bliss is going to want to be in the picture along with others, including Asuka as well. So we're a little bit far away from that yet. But as things stand now, and like you mentioned with the triple threat coming up, I think me and you were on the same page that Rhea just doesn't lose this, right?
No, at least this feud, I think there's definitely some merit to the idea that they're going to want to put on as big of a match as they can at SummerSlam, and I don't know what that would be. I don't want to fuel the Becky Lynch speculation. There's a definite wild card. There's just really no way to know. Even if you say, oh, she had the baby in December, and maybe you think that she could be ready uh, by August. I don't know. If that's off the table, let's assume at this, just for realism at this point. I think they can definitely build Alexa Bliss up enough. If even, and I'd argue that they have. We saw Alexa Bliss face Asuka back in January, and I thought that they're gonna get the title then. And she didn't. So then, and we haven't really seen Alexa in the title scene since then. So I have to think that, that would be a pretty good contingency plan if Becky Lynch, if Ronda Rousey, if these other things that seem to be on the table don't ultimately come to fruition. I think that'd be a pretty darn good, a pretty good way to go about it anyway. I'm looking forward to this triple threat match. I think it'll be great. I think this is the best that Raw could do for the women's division at this point. Put your three top stars out there and just let them go at it. They're all immensely talented. And, like we've been saying, we've seen Charlotte and Rhea. We've seen Charlotte and Asuka. We've seen, and now 2 weeks in a row, we saw Asuka and Rhea Ripley. Put them all together. That's, to combine a fresh matchup. So I'm excited to see how that happens. We've still got a couple weeks kind of to see how that unfolds. It is interesting, like you said, where, Rhea seems to be kind of the babyface now, even though once she was kind of brought up in this WrestleMania program with Asuka, it was pretty clear she was the heel. She turned on her during a tag team match. It seemed to be that's where they're going. And then Charlotte comes back and she's the uber heel. So there's definitely an interesting dynamic there where it's kind of like, if not a gray area, then maybe even just a kind of a quick switch from like face heel back to face now for Rhea Ripley. That is interesting to kind of see. I do like this comment from DJ Tessier wondering if Charlotte attacking the referees is kind of symbolic of her leaning towards being the dirtiest player in the game, like her father, Ric Flair. I think there might be something to that, or that I guess I viewed it more like she was so desperate for this win over the former women's champion Asuka that she snapped. I think that was kind of the way that I looked at it, the way that it would seem to be framed. But I do like, maybe, I mean, a lot of times in WWE, there's so much like unspoken subtleties and things that like they kind of want, it seems like they want you to take away, where it's like, even if they don't say this, as DJ Cassier is saying, that there's some truth to it anyway. I do want to get your thoughts, John. Herman Dakar here saying that he misses Mojo on commentary. I do as well. I noticed that, but I will say this week, kind of unlike last week, especially, I'll say like by the time hour 2 hit, I kind of went like ear blind, where I heard Corey Graves more, and I guess I got used to it. That's kind of the big takeaway from my take on the commentary team. We
Well,
saw.
there's a
What do you think?
reason for there's a reason for that for sure, and it's because Corey Graves was talking more as the show went on. I noticed that even though he's not the lead guy, he kind of slowly was into that role, and you could kind of tell like whenever like certain camera angles would show parts of the commentary table, you could clearly tell that Graves was kind of like trying to direct Verk on what to do, when to say certain things by pointing or tapping on him to say something. I noticed at WrestleMania a lot that that's kind of what they do a lot is they'll kind of like nudge each other to like say like I'm finishing my point and then you pick up on it. But I what I thought you were gonna say when you mentioned hour two was that it got better because I did think that as the show went on, it did get a little better. And what I mean by that is it didn't sound as forced, scripted, or unnatural. Now, granted, we know the show is scripted, but a lot of people don't understand that not the commentary isn't really necessarily scripted. The commentary is basing their reactions off of what they're seeing on TV, and they're supposed to watch the monitors and all that stuff. But to your point of missing Samoa Joe, I actually miss Tom Phillips more.
Yeah.
I think Tom Phillips was great. He was great in the role. He has the voice for it. Um, uh, like I said last week, I really want to give it at least a month before I give a final judgment. But he does not have many friends in the Twitter world right now, and I honestly haven't really. I could probably count on one hand how many positive things I've said about him. Besides, let's give him a couple more weeks. But just generally, like I haven't really seen anybody praising him for good commentary or good work. So it's definitely interesting to see. But I don't know. What do you think about this commentary team? I mean, obviously Graves and Saxon know their way; they're good, but without a lead guy, I mean, the color commentators are kind of useless without a consistently reliable, key guy. And I think they're too far into it now to just go back and have Tom Phillips show up next week, especially because they basically brought this guy in from MLB, ESPN, all that stuff, and signed him for this job. And Michael Cole was basically the one who was like, "This is the guy for the job." So maybe they understood he's going to need a couple weeks to get adjusted. But I mean, where do you stand on this if we go another month, say, and it hasn't gotten any better? What do you think?
I mean, you never see WWE like do something and, or I won't say never. You rarely see them do something and say this isn't working. Let's do something else. I think I joked last week, either on the show or where I was talking in the Slack channel or something. But someone asked me if the Pat it was about the SmackDown move, if the Pat McAfee move was permanent or not, and I was like, oh, it's permanent until they inevitably change it in like 2 months. It's WWE, right? Sometimes they'll change things that, at a whim, and other times they'll kind of just keep rolling with it anyway. And that's fine. I think we're both on the same page about trying to give Ed Enverk the benefit of the doubt. Again, a guy that had a great career as a baseball broadcaster. Now he's in wrestling. And that's an adjustment, obviously. Like you go from a sport that's natural competition and a more conventional sport and into this wacky world of pro wrestling. Anybody's in it's hard to have that adjustment. And especially, like, the fact is, or if not the fact, the general sentiment seems to be a lot of people like Samoa Joe. Friend of the show Nando here saying Joe was doing a great job and now he's gone. So inevitably it's almost like whoever stepped into that role, they had a high bar to live up to. And
Which I mean, essentially, that was Corey Graves, if you think about it. As far as Samoa Joe's role goes, which Corey Graves is good. I mean, I thought he was going to do both shows. It was a big shocker to me whenever they announced on Friday that he was going to be gone from SmackDown. I'm not complaining by any means because I like Pat, but Graves being on Raw, I'm not sure if Graves just wasn't really interested in being a lead guy or if he doesn't think he was the right man for that. But I just hope it gets better. I'll leave it at that.
I think it will. I think it's fair. I do want to call attention to this. We are just talking about Charlotte Flair here. DJ Tessier saying they announced on Raw Talk that Charlotte was suspended indefinitely and fined $100,000. Definitely a way seemingly to extend this feud. We have, I believe, just under a month until WrestleMania Backlash at this point. So that, let's assume this is a week or two if she actually is suspended and this isn't just like a way for her to show up anyway. That this is easily a way to circle back to that Asuka Rhea Ripley feud, and then on the home stretch for the pay-per-view, then you bring in Charlotte Flair again, and like we were saying a couple minutes ago, this is again a way to extend this feud where you don't immediately kind of tire out the dynamic of Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, and you focus on the three-pronged approach here. So yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, she attacked an official. You had to assume that should she get punished for it. We saw this a very similar thing. My mind went to a couple months ago. I think it was last summer. Nia Jax attacked Pat Buck, another official, and she got suspended and quote unquote indefinitely. And she was back shortly thereafter. Or I think she even just apologized, and then nothing really came of it. But it's just a way for them to kind of extend this. So another big takeaway from tonight was Dominic Dijakovic or T-Bar and Mace or Dio Madden. They got unmasked, and I did not expect it to go down this way. Basically, Drew McIntyre wanted revenge for last week, where John, you and I talked about it. It seemed like Mace and T-Bar were new members of the Hurt Business. And they attacked Drew McIntyre to seemingly as kind of like hired guns, or like again that kind of unclear direction of hired guns or members of the Hurt Business. And then this week McIntyre wanted revenge, so he faced them in a handicap match, and he was outnumbered, put up a good fight. He's a strong former champion, but the numbers game overcame him. So Braun Strowman came to the rescue. Now, it is worth pointing out, Braun Strowman had been scheduled to face Randy Orton. We'll talk about Randy Orton's match in a minute, but Braun Strowman wound up coming to the rescue, facing teaming up with Drew McIntyre, facing these former Retribution guys in a tag team match, very, very Teddy Long style here, where you got the running for the save, trying to do a tag team match. But then rather than, a pin or either way, nothing too decisive, Mace and T-Bar got their masks ripped off. And these two guys, McIntyre and Strowman, just clobbered them with their own masks, and the referee ruled it disqualification. So you have to assume the next week we'll get some more follow up on this. But we're all supposed to be stunned that oh my gosh, Mace and T-Bar are secret. That's what they look like. And this is the first time actually that they had been seen without their mask on TV. But for months now, most people have known that they are Dominic Dijakovic
and it's not even just that. It's the fact that like they didn't even really say like, oh, it's Dominic Dijakovic. They're just like, this is the first time we're seeing this guy's face on TV. Like, it's just silly to me that they're not, because usually when things like that happen, like for example, back when they did the luchador that was Mickey James and she unmasked and they're like, oh, it's Mickey James, but tonight they weren't like, oh, this is Dio Madden or anything like that. They're maybe they'll get to that point, but they're not there yet. It was silly. I think the whole entire thing they did with the Hurt Business was just to set up to this moment, and that was it. I saw people saying, let's keep them unmasked. I do think they probably will stay unmasked now. Will they stay as a tag team? That's another question to be asked. Will they retain their names, T-Bar and Mace? That's also to be determined. I personally hope they go back to their NXT names. Dio Madden, I don't think he's the caliber of a talent to stay on Raw though as a singles guy. Dominic obviously is. He could do it very well. But I don't know. Let's see where they take it. I don't think they're affiliated with the Hurt Business. I think last week was kind of fans jumping the gun. Like you're the one that said last week on the show, I don't want to jump the gun and say they're a part of Hurt Business. Looks like you were right. That's not the case. So credit on that one.
Thank you. It is interesting that it's funny because my first thought was like, all right, they're just gonna show back up next week with their mask on, and in some ways that's just my standards and expectations being drastically lowered for Raw these days. But I would be very happy if they did stay unmasked, where from the start, this mask for T-Bar has always been pretty silly. Even if they keep the names, at least the mask is a step in the right, taking the mask off and keeping them off is a step in the right direction. But while we're on the subject, Benjamin A. Jones wondering, where's Slapjack, legendary future Hall of Famer Slapjack? Well, Slapjack, or Shane Thorne, he's reportedly alongside Reckoning or Mia Yim is moving to SmackDown. So at least we saw it at at Fastlane. Retribution broke up. They attacked Mustafa Ali. They were kind of gone for a couple weeks, and they're in the Andre Battle Royale. Now we got this thing with Drew McIntyre. But the rest of Retribution is kind of going in the new direction. I would assume if we are getting, unmasked Dijakovic and Diomed at this point, maybe we'll see kind of repackaging or a new direction in this way for, I should say, Shane Thorne and Mia Yim. I would hope, especially Mia Yim, someone that could be a great asset to the SmackDown Women's Division, as Mia Yim. And I think they could make a reckoning work, I guess on her own, but I'm not very hopeful about it. I mean, there is that kind of, I think someone commented last week that retribution like stink. There's the theory that MVP could kind of get that stink off of Mason T-Bar. If you move Miriam to SmackDown, don't even just move on. Just let her be yourself, and she'll do great, especially in this. If she moves to SmackDown, she's going to be alongside Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, Carmella. There's a very good division that could definitely use her for even more depth. I think that'd be very good for her as well. But I do want to talk about Randy Orton and Riddle. I mean, my gosh. So, as I said, we were supposed to get Randy Orton and Braun Strowman tonight. As always, card is subject to change. So, we did not get that match. I assume we'll get it sooner rather than later. It's
Never.
clearly something that, maybe. It's one of the they tweeted that it's a first time match, probably one of the few things one of the few first time matches that they've got available on Raw at this point. So that would definitely be something cool to see. But instead, we got Riddle and Randy Orton. John, I've never rooted so hard for someone to get punted. When Riddle, like, he was on his scooter and he like rolled up to Randy Orton, and this time he added a sound effect where he was like, I
Oh
was like,
boy.
my gosh, like, what are we doing? And then I'm like, the whole time I'm just rooting. I'm like, I didn't think it was gonna happen. Even if he didn't get punted, I just wanted to see, like, I want to see Orton win, just to, like, beat him up and like get a good win. It was a great, as Herman Takar was saying, it was a great match. These guys delivered. This was, I think, during the first hour, and
Yes.
it was pretty rough. John, I think you said overall the show kind of got better as it went on. First hour was pretty rough. It was a lot of replay.
RK bro.
Yeah, okay, like he had jokes. Riddle has jokes. Fine, it was a good match. The Wacky Warrior saying that Riddle's one of the best things on Raw right now. So hey, Riddle's got his fans.
Oh my gosh. The fact that he won this match blows my mind and
Yep.
makes me think even twice as much as I did last week that Randy Orton is taking time off very soon. Now, obviously, everybody's tweeting, he's untouchable. He can't look bad by losing to anybody, and I get that. He's 14-time champion. If he loses, it's okay. And yes, it helps Riddle. But I agree with other people saying, why was Riddle getting destroyed the past 4 weeks if he was going to beat Randy Orton? Like, what direction are they going with Riddle right now? Because it's clear he's going to stay as this kind of dopey Dan babyface character, and he's obviously done with Sheamus. He's not getting Bobby Lashley. So what's next for Riddle? I mean, his his moniker the last couple of weeks slash months has been basically trying to find somebody that wants to team up with him, but nobody wants to team up with him. I mean, the New Day has teased that maybe they want to team up with him, but that's just all inside jokes, really. But he's done this with Keith Lee. He's done this with Braun Strowman. He's done this with Randy Orton, and I think he's even done this with Drew McIntyre about, oh, and he did it with Kalisto before he was gone. Let's
Right.
be a team, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, where do you think they're going? Like, who's he going to team up with? I mean, and then not just who's he going to team up with, what's he going to do, period, now?
I mean,
Pete
I
Dunne.
don't know.
Luke says Pete Dunne.
That'd be something, right? I mean, again, there are always the jokes about WWE not having long-term storytelling, but uh, hey, if they brought back, Pete Dunne, run back the Broser weights, um, I guess that'd be something better than what we've been getting.
I'm
Michael.
just shocked that he won because you would have to think that Orton is definitely taking time off. I mean, that's been the rumor the past like 3 weeks, and it seems to be the direction they've been going with him. I mean, it clearly feels like him and Wyatt are done. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
that's the vibe I get.
Now it is worth noting Bray Wyatt not on the show tonight. We got Alexa Bliss. We'll talk about her, but just to wrap up with Riddle
You know
here,
who else we didn't get tonight, which I've
the
seen
tag
a
team
lot of people
champions.
comment. Yeah,
Ridiculous. We'll talk about that as well. I mean, that is weird. I don't want to, again, don't want to speculate. Wonder if something's going on there. I don't know.
That's what I was going to, I don't want to speculate either, but I have
Yeah,
to also think that something must be going on, whether it be injury or COVID or
I know,
something.
and that would be terrible.
Um,
You won the titles WrestleMania, and you're not there for 2 weeks.
I
Um,
mean, it's already been revealed that AJ already had it like in
yeah,
October, so obviously he doesn't have it. I mean, it would have to be Omos of anybody, but again, that's all speculation. But I mean, maybe an injury if that would be the case. But I mean, the fact that we haven't even seen them mentioned, period,
it's
is
very
kind of
weird.
troublesome. They haven't even been
Oh yeah,
mentioned.
it's bizarre to me. To wrap up about Riddle here, friend of the show Nando saying, I want to see Riddle on SmackDown, have him less goofy, and have a feud with Nakamura. I've been saying for a while now, I really want to see a less goofy Riddle. That way, he'd be, I mean, for me at least, maybe I sound like a crotchety old man, but I'd tolerate him a little more. Because, like, again, sometimes the jokes land and it's fun. Sometimes I'm sitting there wanting to, like, pound my head on the desk. Like tonight, again, he's zooming by on his scooter and making a little sound effect. He comes out with the birds now with the his entrance graphics, and it's just bizarre. And we were talking about the United States Championship. Riddle lost that to Sheamus WrestleMania. If you're getting John, where you were talking, if Randy was going to take, if that's been kind of assumed or in the rumor mill, or let's say that is true, right? Let's say that Randy Orton will be taking time off. If and if that, I would assume WWE would know that he plans to. Then why not like build Riddle up here, have him score this big win over Randy Orton? Like I don't even know how many time world champion at this point, future Hall of Famer, and then use that to kind of springboard Riddle to something better than ever, right? Like sometimes it seems so easy, and they don't do these things, and like I don't know what they're doing. But again, we're speaking of the United States Championship, we did not see the Raw Tag Team Champions tonight. We did see Sheamus. Sheamus returned, saying that he and kind of following in the tradition of the United States Championship. He was saying it was a new and open challenge. Out comes Humberto Carrillo. And then instantly I thought this man is either going to get absolutely demolished or maybe he'll get an upset, win here and they'll try it again with Humberto, a guy that was one of the featured guys during the Paul Heyman era of Raw. And then he kind of faded into obscurity. This was an absolute mauling. Sheamus destroyed this man. It wasn't even really a match. He just kind of beat him up and then dropped him a road kick. So, I was funny because I thought like, oh, if a show that could use some fresh blood, some new characters, some new faces here, just jobbed him out to Sheamus
What
and there we go.
happened is exactly what I thought was going to happen, so I'm not surprised there, and I have no complaints. It was a little odd to me how people kind of seemed very excited when he first came out. Like, I mean, I remember like fans like me and you are basically the reason that this guy left in the first place because they tried to give him a chance, but it just didn't work. Now, obviously, like Luke says in the comments, it goes back to the booking here, but it's still, he wasn't getting over with fans. And now he comes back after pretty much over a year of being just in 24/7 segments, which we haven't seen that either, or stuff like that. And then he comes out tonight, and there was no doubt in my mind that what happened is what was going to happen. And then I see people, a lot of people commenting like, "Well, what is this all building up to?" And what they mean by that is Sheamus is going to build himself up as this huge heel, basically like the United States Sheamus is the equivalent to the Bobby Lashley WWE champion, except Sheamus is in a little bit of a smaller role. But the question that everybody's asking is who will Sheamus be fed to? And the general thought seems to be that when Keith Lee comes back, he'll be the one to feud with Sheamus and dethrone him. But we have no idea what's going on with Keith Lee right now because there's obviously something he's admitted there's something going on with him. I wrote an article on this yesterday on WrestleZone. He doesn't want to say what it is yet, but he said that he will at some point. So it seems semi-serious, but uh, it'll be interesting to see. We know what it is, but what do you think? Who is Sheamus going to be quote unquote fed to?
I've got to think Keith Lee. I very much hope that um, he'll come back. He'll be healthy. He's dealing with something. It's I believe the report was some unknown medical issue.
Yep.
Don't know what, and I obviously don't want to speculate as to what that is. Um, But I've got to think that that's kind of the play here. Put the title on the up and coming guy. Granted, that's what they do with Riddle, but apparently that wasn't really the plan because that was supposed to be Keith Lee's spot, reportedly. And then Keith Lee wasn't able to be there at Elimination Chamber, so they had to kind of call this audible, gave Riddle this run, and then decided to put the title on Sheamus. So at this point, I'm going to assume that Sheamus will have it for a while, and then definitely a lot of support for Keith Lee here becoming the next champion. Also, Damian Priest may be a wild card there.
I
He's been
like that comment. I do like
yeah.
Damian Priest as a possibility.
I do want to point out, like, it is to me just crazy the difference in how Riddle and Priest are presented. Where like Riddle is this joke. Well, I don't want to be harsh, but he's presented as this very
Dopey
like
Dan.
Dopey Dan. I love it. He trademarked John Clark, Dopey Dan. And then and again, some people love that, and that's fine. Like everybody has their own taste. But then Damian Priest, tonight he was out there dropping quips about Jake Paul, and he was he's very likable, and he's growing on me. Has grown on me a lot since NXT. Tonight was definitely another step in the right direction, because now I will say it felt like well, this WrestleMania program, he was kind of in the back seat of Bad Bunny here, and now he's kind of in the forefront, and now he's feuding with the Miz, former WWE champion. That's very good for him. And he beat the Miz tonight, I should say. The way he was not pinned by a man in his underwear like last week. Now he did win. So that's a big win for him, and I'm hopeful that granted he is on the the older side, but so is Riddle, so relatively. So there's definitely room for him to have him be to get a U.S. title run at least. Hummer Dakar here, with an interesting comment. What if Keith Lee moves to SmackDown, challenges Apollo Crews? It's possible. John, we were talking about possibly them doing a shakeup, at some point soon, or if we want to look even further, maybe the draft. That is a long ways off, so who even knows what will be happening around then. Demetrios Duvres, sorry if I mispronounced that, saying hopefully they don't screw up Damian Priest. I agree.
So far so good.
So far so good, and I will say in a lot of ways, like when they first got called Riddle up, and Keith Lee as well, like a lot of times these guys come up and they're presented very well, and then the wheels kind of fall off. And it's unfortunate where it's like you can kind of see the trajectory, and then it's just gone. I don't know. Like it's the inconsistent booking, and it just falls apart, and it's unfortunate. I'm hopeful there will be exceptions here, especially with Damian Priest. Nando here with an interesting comment saying Priest has an edge. Like, I don't know if he's saying edge like the edge, or if he's saying he has an edge to him, but maybe both, right? And he's got that edge as in like a I guess as a description, and then you can also compare him to Edge, the regular superstar. Kind of a little double entendre there. No, he's got that star appeal to him. He's got that, I'll say, an it factor. I think if they play the cards right, even as a relatively short, maybe like let's compare him to Batista, a guy that kind of came in to WWE pretty later in his life. I guess he was, I think, late 30s or so, but he has still had a good couple years ish. I'm roughly remembering that. Priest, I think, is late 30s as well.
I believe he's 38.
Yeah,
yes,
so
he is 38.
But so in theory, especially we've seen guys like Edge now is a good example as well. Like he's up there very much so, and he had 10 years of his career taken away from him.
I mean,
But,
AJ's in his 40s too.
Yeah, so wrestling is very much this industry where you can have a good run.
It's trending up, if you've noticed that. The average
Yeah.
median age of the roster, which this might not be a good thing, over the past 10, 15 years on Raw, the average median age of the superstar has gone up pretty high. I mean, it used to be in the high to lower 30s. Now the average age is like 35, 36, 37. So, I mean, it's getting up there, which, like
Yeah.
I said, it could be a good or it could be a bad thing. Most people would probably think it's a bad thing, but
I mean, it is worth noting that back at, I think it was Elimination Chamber, they had that Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title. All of those got, I think, everyone but AJ, I believe, was in WWE in 2011, 10
yeah.
years ago. And so they literally, if you think just
No, granted, there was no NXT back then either. I mean, I guess you could say there was Florida Championship Wrestling, but that's nowhere near the same thing that NXT is at now. So,
right. So that, yeah, I mean, pros and cons, right? A lot of the time, you look at some of these guys that are, up there in age, whether it's AJ, Damian Priest, like there's still very much ways that you can kind of build them into quote unquote new stars, even though they're not spring chickens, for lack of a better word. Like there's very much a way to, that's age is just a number. Let's roll with that. Let's be optimistic and say that. Um, I think that Damian Priest could be very, very good thing for Raw in the short term, in the medium term, and hey, if they play the cards right, for a couple years even. One more thing here that we haven't touched on yet. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. We definitely saw potentially a little tease of a breakup here.
The
We had
seeds were planted.
the seeds were planted, John. Yes, they were. We saw uh almost mixed them up. Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose distracted Nia Jax during a match here. Well, this kind of like bullying angle where like Nia Jax kind of bullied them last week. Now they're bullying her. Everyone's a bully. It's not a good time. And then they were showing these clips of Nia Jax and of them beating her up last week during her match. She walks out. Shayna Baszler gets pinned by Lana and Naomi. Now we had this match start, and I was like, oh, they kind of dropped the ball with Natalya and Tamina here with the women's tag titles. Maybe they'll kind of play roll with Lana and Naomi. It kind of seems like they could at least challenge. So Lana and Naomi pinned Shayna Baszler here. Not a good look for her. But then she was definitely upset, as Jess Mata here saying, some cracks in the team. Because then Shayna confronted Nia Jax backstage and said, like, pay attention or else. So it definitely seems like we might be seeing, John, you said that the seeds are planted. Jesse Mata said some cracks in the team. I've got to think, we're not too. I mean, granted, I've been saying this for a while now, but now it seems like we might actually be getting the actual split here. Long overdue, and I hope to see that happen. Maybe at WrestleMania Backlash. I think that'd be a good place for it. Give the titles to Lana and Naomi. Just I want to see them win at WrestleMania anyway, so I'd be pretty happy with that. What do you think, John? What do you think that they should do with this team and the titles?
I still think the direction they're going is Tamina and Natalia, but I don't understand why they're involving themselves into basically 3 feuds at once. To me, it's clear Tamina and Natalia are next in line, and maybe they're using the Raw side of things either just to give those ladies something to do, or that's the seed they're planting to break up Nia and Shayna. I do believe they'll go back because if you remember, they're still due to have one-on-one match yet. This kind of goes back to the Cesaro and Sheamus thing. They had the best of 7, but then they got together before the 7th. I think they're still due a one-on-one match, and I think they'll have that. So that's where I think they're going to go with that.
I mean, I wonder if we'll see. If it's WrestleMania Backlash, it's run it back season, so maybe we'll see. We got the tag team turmoil match WrestleMania, so maybe we'll see this like triple threat match with all 3 teams, and then kind of see this implosion, and like you just said, see this eventual one-on-one match, and then finally move on. DJ Tessier going in a different direction, saying maybe Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke will be the next women's tag team champions. I just don't see it. We've seen these two as a team for months now. They were doing their best, but I don't see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
Something's not working. Especially at least for like for the champions. They could be a team, and that's fine. But
not a chance that happens. So
yeah, I don't see that. Unfortunately, they're both very talented. They're great. But Nesh Kerr saying that she definitely thinks Natalya and Tamina will be the next tag team champions, and I have to agree. And now we're wondering what will happen next. Jesse Mata saying he sees Basler leaving Jackson to go for the Raw title once Ripley kind of puts her feud with Flair away for good. I think that'd be a great feud. We saw run back what they did in NXT. That was a very good feud. I'd like to see that for sure. And then you've also got Money in the Bank there, so maybe the team breaks up, and then they kind of contend for the Money in the Bank ladder match, or potentially kind of put them both in it and see who wins. But no, there's definitely, I think I like that option. We were just talking earlier in the show about making Rhea Ripley. She seems to be kind of a face now. So then you bring up this very dominant heel Basler, as I've been hoping to see for a while. Give that feud, and as we said earlier, we have this 3-way feud of Asuka, Charlotte Flair. You build up Rhea Ripley here, and then you kind of maximize the effectiveness of this feud with Shayna Basler, that seems like a winning recipe to me. I mean, whether it's, I don't know if that's necessarily SummerSlam worthy, but maybe John, you said earlier, if we see this feud of Charlotte and Rhea being stretched out between, Extreme Rules and Money in the Bank or so, maybe later in the year, if they kind of play the long game and build Baszler up more. And now again, just kind of bring it full circle, we're talking about Alexa Bliss as well. They've got options, you're right, and especially if we've got this three-way match right now, and then these other options with Bliss and Baszler and other things as well. So pretty quickly here, the Raw Women's division is becoming one of the highlights of the show. We got some kind of mixed comments about the overall quality of tonight. I will say the first hour was very, it was a lot of replay from last week, and then the show kind of picked up. Then we got this, it was a good main event. Then Charlotte snapped. A mixed bag, and a mixed bag. I admit, I'm biased. I really wanted to see Randy Orton beat Riddle, and when he didn't, I was really disappointed. Oh, we didn't even talk about Alexa Bliss. We should talk about that real quick. Alexa Bliss was on the show. Bray Wyatt was not. Nothing. I mean, it was Alexa's playground. She talked more about Lily, her
Very funny,
terrifying
very
doll.
funny.
And wow, she said that this doll was photoshopped into like Alexa's childhood photos, and she said that she's had this doll her whole life, and it's been this influence on her. And when she doesn't like someone, or when Lily doesn't like someone, the doll tells Bliss to hurt them. So apparently Lily didn't. I'm just recapping this. Lily didn't like the Fiend, so Alexa Bliss did something, and now the Fiend is gone, supposedly. And then she said this promo, it was basically the point was, Alexa Bliss was made clear she's kind of re-entering the mix here with the women's division. So I see that as a very good thing for the women's division and for Alexa Bliss. I've been hoping to see her be more active as a wrestler here. And then there was one funny line where Alexa said something like, she was some like childhood story about how Lily told her to like push someone off a swing when they like took her ice cream cone, and she broke her arm, something like
Yeah,
that.
Alexa wanted to eat the ice cream cone, but the quote unquote bitch would not share, so she pushed her off the swing, and then the teacher asked her why she did it, and her answer to why she did it was because she didn't like her or something, or
She
because she
said
wanted.
because Lily told me to.
Yeah, even
That
though she
was
doesn't like strawberry ice cream, she still wanted the ice cream anyway. I don't know.
Oh man, that was like one of the lines of the night. Like push the like you said, on the quality what push the little bitch off the swing. I was like, whoa. And then it's worth pointing out that was the second B word drop of the night. Where Asuka dropped it when she was talking to Charlotte Flair. Definitely going
That was
edgy
good.
here. I don't know. You can your mileage will vary, but it's always like, oh, didn't see that coming. John, every week, John Clark here, he wrote a feature about his experience at WrestleMania, the first live show in over a year. He was there in person. He was our boots on the ground. Make sure to check it out. Every week, I say I'm going to write a feature about defending the Fiend and Alexa Bliss and everything here because I've enjoyed it a lot. And every week, the energy gets like sapped out of me because like I was this close to finally pulling the trigger on it for WrestleMania. I think like right before it, but like I was pretty on board with it.
Then
And
they
then
broke up.
afterwards, then that happened, and then Alex Bliss, I liked how they explained it. They brought Lily in. I was like, all right, kind of like Annabelle, kind of cool. There's plenty of horror movie connections. I like it. I don't know because like it's almost like what's the point of defending this because like they're so bad, there's so much bad. Like Alexa Bliss is doing so much like great work, but I don't know, like
Gotta give you a
I
rating on the show.
yeah, I mean I love kind of transitioning here. I like what Alex Bliss is doing. I like this, but at the same time, kind of overall here, I'm just not confident in like where we're going. Like we were talking about Riddle beating Randy Orton. Don't know what's the point of that. Like if the plan was uh for knowing Randy was going to take time off, you would think they build out that better. Nestor Kurt's giving it a 7. We got a 2. We got a 3. Man, we got some low ratings here. I didn't think it was that bad. Demetrios Duvres, if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm sorry. With a 7. Steven Chambers with a 5. Again, there's that like sliding scale where it's raw, so it's hard to be too harsh. It's hard to be like too generous. I'll go for a 7. DJ Castillo of a 9. What do you think, John? Share your thoughts on the ratings here. We got 6s and
Uh,
6.5s.
I'm gonna go with a 6.
Ooh, 6. Why? What's your reasoning for that?
Just because I think last week I gave it a 5.75. This week I give it a 6. It was obviously a little better than last week, and that's kind of sad to say because that was the Raw after Mania. There was some progression tonight. I like what they're doing with Sheamus. No Bobby Lashley tonight, which was a little weird. And again, still no mention of the tag team champions either. Also weird. Um, let's just see. I mean, they're obviously the next name WrestleMania Backlash, that pay-per-view, that says it all. They're basically recycling a lot of these feuds or adding like one person into the mix. But yeah, we're gonna go with the 6.
I mean, I think a 6 is fair. I mean, for me, I gave it a 7 because last week was such a letdown. I was pretty much just like begging for any improvement tonight, and the fact that it was better. Uh, Again, I didn't agree with all the choices. With Randy Orton losing to Riddle and the way the way they went about it, and then the main event, it was a good match. And granted, kind of a little bit of a cop out with this suspension thing. Nando was given a 6. We got a 5 here. Good matches, and nothing like appalling like necessarily like last week. This was, like you said, John, some more progression and a little, you know, it was a step back in the right direction. Whereas last week it was like easy to kind of be a naysayer of like, oh man, this is really bad. But I like this. I mean, yeah, I'm not really looking forward to WrestleMania Backlash at this point, because it is really, it is WrestleMania Backlash. It is very much a show full of rematches here, and that's what Jesse Mata is saying. It's like Raw kind of will remain kind of stagnant. He says mid tier. I'm gonna say stagnant. Until after Backlash, because then if you're kind of recycling these feuds, SmackDown's running into a similar problem where it's a lot of repeat, and then after that we can kind of see what happens next, because then you're going to see potential, hopefully, some new feuds there. Well, hopefully it's what happens. We've still got a couple weeks here to see, how these next couple weeks unfold, what does happen to Backlash, what WrestleMania Backlash, sorry. We'll have to wait and see. I'm gonna, again, always try to be kind of generous in terms of giving it the benefit of the doubt, even though it's Raw, even though we always get, not always, often get let down. I'm hopeful and I try to be optimistic. Nando with a creative suggestion here, WWE Revenge would be a good paper name for Backlash. I mean, they got Payback, so I don't think they can do Revenge, because like it does seem like they hesitate to do anything too redundant. But you know, that I like the idea. I mean, Revenge is a good name. I think WCW had a video game or an event like that back in the day. But that's neither here or there. WrestleMania Backlash will be, again, just about a month, so we got plenty of time for that. In the meantime, here at WrestleZone, we will have you guys covered with many post shows, whether it's this show for Raw. John and I do the NXT post show on Tuesdays, and NXT on Tuesdays. The Dynamite dudes of Attitude do AEW coverage. They've got you guys covered for that. We've got you covered with a SmackDown Double Down on Fridays with myself and Robert DeFelice. The pay-per-view post shows, we got countless great interviews. Bill Pritchard just interviewed Paul White, The Big Show. You gotta check that out. Great get for us. He also interviewed a bunch of ECW legends as well. Mikey Whipwreck being one of them. Make sure to check it out. Tons of great stuff coming to you guys. And as always, it's available wherever you want to be, wherever you want to find it, whether it's Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever it may be. More streaming services than I can even think to mention at almost midnight on a Monday
VHS.
night. VHS. Maybe not that. Pretty much everything but that. But make sure to leave a like, subscribe, show your support. We definitely appreciate it. We thank you for listening. And again, Raw tonight was a step in the right direction. But even when Raw's bad, John, we do one thing above all others, and that I need you to tell me what that is.
Oh, well, we try our best to do this. Sometimes it can be hard, but we enjoy the wrestling.
Indeed.